The party were pushed back by the massive explosion and magical backdraft that knocked them all off of their feet and into the previous room. Once the smoke had cleared, there was no sign of the champions at all. Quickly they stood up. Those who were stood up first helped the others to their feet. Tordrad helped Dieter to his feet, who quietly thanked him. He had, after all, fallen into him to knock him down in the first place. Dieter was internally surprised. Somehow the wizard had done it. Had done something, anyway. He couldn't believe this group had actually won the fight. He was just glad that this adventure was almost over so that he could get rid of them. He worked better solo, and being heroes like this attracted too much attention from higher powers. As it was, he had been forced to restrain himself, with the witch hunters being around as they were. Very little was said as they returned back up the passage as quickly as they could. Once they hit daylight from the secret door's exit, an entire squad of witch hunters led by Malvanius came into view. Maestro noticed for the first time that the witch hunter captain wore a particularly eye-catching signet ring. Upon it, a crossed sword and hammer were depicted across a background design of the twin-tailed comet of Sigmar with the letters O and F inscribed upon it. He was sure he had seen this design somewhere before. Quickly the group explained what had happened, and half of the witch hunters ran down the passage in a sprint. Malvanius nodded his head very slightly, clenching his jaw in consideration. Yes, he thought, there was something special about this group. 2 hours later they were finally free from questioning. The witch hunters had gathered the proof they had needed to corroborate the group's story, but there had been no sign at all of the Chaos Champions themselves, save for the broken remnants of the golden staff that Maestro had spelled out of the Tzeentch champion's grip. It was even decided by someone in the higher-ups of Altdorf that a reward of gold crowns would be bestowed upon them for saving the city from, by all accounts, demonic outbreak. From their statements, it sounded to Malvanius like the first demon to step through would have been a greater demon, perhaps the avatar of Tzeentch, to help summon more quickly. Decisions were being made as to what everyone would do next. Tobias had taken his leave from the party first, heading back to some official place or another to deliver a report about Maestro. Maestro himself knew that he would have to leave the city by the quickest means possible to avoid getting into any more trouble. He vowed that he would not make the same mistake again and spend just one more night in the city. This city stunted his growth as a wizard. He had become too fond of safety, of comfort. The tutors and his own master held the same opinion, that he would flourish better out there exposed to real danger, where he would be forced to cast spells and need to get them right to save himself, rather than the placid threat of yet another test failure. He had become all too used to them over the years. Tordrad, of course, would have to go with him, he knew. The Kislevite knew that he was worth more money than the wizard was paying him, but when he had arrived in Altdorf seeking work as a hired sword, he had been demoted to the lower band of payees simply because he couldn't speak Reichspiel. Maestro should have ended up with someone less skilled than he knew. The wizard didn't know how lucky he was, having a man such as he as his bodyguard. When he knew that he was leaving to wander the wilds alone, Maestro naturally decided to hire some protection. Though he had come from a wealthy background, his family's money had run out. The last of his coin had been spent on tuition fees for the college, bizarre oddities that Maestro had a tendency to waste his money on, and the very last of it went on hiring Tordrad, making sure to pay him a good long while up front so he could worry about rehiring fees later on. Rysandria too had to leave the city. She had been instructed to study, to learn the world, and give aid to those who needed it, as were the foundations of her order. She sensed a grave darkness in the future of mankind, and knew that her duty lay somewhere there, wherever war might bring suffering. The wizard, she knew, was on a path of conflict, a road that led through great affliction. She wondered how much of that affliction and suffering might be at the wizard's own hand. Then there was the fact that the demonic gods knew of him now. They must surely be angered or impressed. When she heard that Maestro and Tordrad would be leaving the city by river barge, she too decided that this would be her route. Destination anywhere, she told herself. She wouldn't necessarily disembark when the wizard did. She would just be present, so that she'd have the choice to do so when the time came. Dieter made his excuses and left the group, explaining that he would concentrate again on becoming a doctor and aiding the city in that way. It was nearly night, he thought. He had better get home and get some sleep. Before Moore's gazing eye was about, looking for him in the night sky as he always did, he did not doubt that.